This video is recorded in the purposes of review and answering some questions that are put up in this article uh, by Lori Freri and the flatterofconspiracy.com. The article's name is Singularity, the Matrix, and Artificial Intelligence. We're gonna start with part 1 today. It was written on September 22nd this year. Probably the topic was discussed before, and Lori is has one of the channels, Flat Earth Conspiracy channel, that was chatting with me in 2016, way before I started my own channel, and so we got hooked up on the Facebook Flat Earth Conspiracy page, something like this. I don't know. And I'm sorry if something will be pronounced wrong and said wrong. English is not my first language, and as I've said before many times, I haven't been practicing for several decades, and since 2016, I'm trying to reconsider my dictionary and all this stuff, and some words still are not in the right use and still are not pronounced right, so I'm kind of sorry for that, folks. Okay, so the part 1 is starting with this. Let's first go back to the Matrix movies. When we watched the Matrix, we considered it is a fictional and an action movie that portrayed humans as being separated parts in being connected to the machine's artificial intelligence, right? Those that are unplugged from the Matrix were still human biological beings, but they were outside of the machine-controlled Matrix. The Matrix ran simulated programs that each human believed was reality. There was one generalized reality, and yet each person in their pod was separately having their own individual experience. Well, probably that means that not exactly their own, but common with the others that are in the Matrix, preloaded in the Matrix. The general simulation included the world and all of its people with the belief that everything is connected via the same reality. Inside this matrix, your brain is a separate program within the general program. But once you're unplugged or were outside the matrix, your brain was free of both the generalized program and your individual matrix program, so your experiences were no longer controlled by the matrix. Was the matrix supposed to represent singularity, this simulated connection to this common reality? Well, I've been researching on singularity. In fact, I watched a video which gave a couple of definitions of that word, because the dictionary simply was misleading me to some other opinions and some other definitions. But we're gonna stop at the singularity a little bit further. Most research describes singularity as an era in which our intelligence will become increasingly non-biological and trillions of times more powerful than it is today. The dawning of the new civilization that will enable us to transcend our biological limitations and amplify our creativity. Well, as I've said before, I've had a couple of definitions of singularity which are different than this one, but this is no problem right now. And a singularity is a paradigm shifting event, a hypothetical event occurring when a technological process becomes so rapid and the growth of superhuman intelligence is so great that the future after the singularity becomes quantitatively harder to predict, which is unpredictable events, According to futurists, those guys who probably work on future and try to prognose it, the exponential development of technology in general and artificial intelligence (AI) in particular, including the complete digital replication of human brains, will radically transform humanity via two revolutions. The first is the singularity, when artificial intelligence will redesign itself recursively and progressively such that the AI will become vastly more powerful than human intelligence, super strong AI. The second revolution will be virtual immortality, when the fullness of our mental selves can be uploaded perfectly to non-biological media such as silicon chips, and our mental selves will live on beyond the demise of our fleshy physical bodies. So let's stop for this right now, and let's return to the Matrix. So we like starting with the idea of the Matrix movie, and then turning this article into the paradigm of stating stuff like based on the Matrix simulation programs that we've seen in the movie. But if we know that the Matrix really is existent, and we like assuming all this research on singularity, then we have to understand how it is physically done in our world. Like the ideas of Matrix set up us to some state of body possession when we attach to the body via some digital signal and simply controlling the digital body via the brain activity that we produce, and so on and so forth. But this is also ties to avatar controlment, and what we seen in Avatar movie, when a person remotely controlled the avatar, which was biological human, not human, non-human being, right? But it was a physical body. In the Matrix, we have different way. We don't have the physical body in digital Matrix. We have a digital signal, or the program, individual program, which Laurie calls. But in our world, what we have is we also have such thing as physical body itself. Like all we know is everything is an electric charge or frequency, as the scientist says, and they say like physical signal can produce some kind of waves, and we can see those waves via the attached eye or something like this, the device that we have as an eye, and which could also be a representation of what we see around in our while being processed. The signal is processed via our brain, and the signal also be remotely transported to the avatar holder of the controller of our body, right? So this could be implemented in our world, right? But one thing doesn't work with the Matrix. In the Matrix, we have so-called agents, right? The programs that are, trying to make things work as they supposed to work, right? And those agents are everywhere. Like if you try to opposite the Matrix, be opposite to the Matrix, meaning the Matrix goal, you end up being caught with those agents, and they turning you directly to the other side of program, and you become more more predictable to the Matrix, and simply not that dangerous as if you would be an opposite person, right? Opposition or whatever, and maybe even fighting Matrix, fighting all these people, and in the Matrix and whatever you do. But in our world, we don't have such a thing, and people just, I've never seen a person um, performing anything like changing his view like those agent Smiths did. Like, the program is the program, it's a digital program, right? So if it's a digital program, you can pass through the things, pass through the walls, pass through the water, and all this stuff. But we have these achievements. We see people not breathing in the water for 10 minutes, for half an hour, I guess, maybe even more, but they can't breathe forever. In the Matrix, you could do it forever. And they showing us the Neo as the person that can do and achieve any goal that even anybody wants to achieve. So this is really a good comparison of the Matrix system, the Matrix movie, other movies that we see in Hollywood production, and what we have right now. Really, they try to distort our view that we have a program world, and I wonder why this idea was catching Lori's Lori's attention. I wonder why she is comparing the Matrix. Um, then a couple of decades already passed since the movie was produced, and I don't know why is she all in the Matrix, because maybe this is her willingness to try to solve the flat Earth map uh, problem when she is turning to idea of some maps and all this stuff, and she's trying to work on the question of maps, and she suddenly figure out that it doesn't work this way, and a map doesn't work and all this stuff. So another point that she's bringing, that simply the Matrix is the place that could be working in this flat Earth model that we research right now, and probably is what we observe as a flat Earth. So very good point, I think, because it all was made this way. All this information that we achieve, that we get through these years, through centuries, and in maybe two last centuries, like 20th and 21st century, we simultaneously gain new information, and we even cannot process it immediately. So 10 or even 2 decades, 10 years, maybe 20 years passed since the movie was done, and after researching flat Earth, she comes up with this idea that probably the Matrix has something to do with this flat Earth map stuff. And this is the research on singularity, which is unpredictable, hypothetical event, right? And a technological possession of our biological stuff that we have around could be actually achieved in the Matrix, and probably is achieved in our world. All right. A singularity and virtual immortality would mark a startling transhuman world that techno-futurists envision as inevitable and perhaps just over the horizon. Okay? They do not question whether their vision can be actualized, they only debate when it will occur, with estimates ranging from 10 to 100 years. Okay? So probably this is a good question. When? Or maybe it's already started, right? Who knows? Inside the Matrix, there was a limited amount of what we call free will, right? The reason I say that is because most of the experiences that you would have are programmed, and only in a microform way would you make decisions based on that singularity programming throws at you. For example, what time to wake up, or what time to eat for lunch, and how you did your programmed job. right? You never know, but you just wake up in the morning as you programmed, and you eat your lunch, and you go to your work, and you programmed and program. This is actually ties with the educational questions, what we've been told and how we've been told, and looking at those all those people that surrounding you as programs that are programmed to teach you and to act the same way as you, and to teach you to act this way, to be possessed with this matrix program and all this timing around. And so you're like acting on time exactly as the program wants you. But does the program want to control the programs? This is a bad question for those who are researching the matrix, because what does the program want? This is not the idea that we see in a movie. Actually, this is a stupid idea that was presented in a movie. Program which achieving the energy from the humans and making this eternal cycle of something. It would be a lot cheaper to produce some type of another energy source, which is right now everywhere when we know about atmospheric electricity and all this stuff. If we actually on a physical plane and being controlled as the batteries for some, invisible controllers, and we acting in this world for what? For achieving what goals? This is no sense for the program to control us this way. We are not the energy source, right? There's no question of, reproduction. People being cloned to become a battery in the movie of Matrix. I cannot think of a way the program and technology was so advanced so the people could be cloned to be a battery and still have the ability to wake up and make a revolution. This is stupid enough for the program to produce such type of clones. Programs cannot let those people wake up in any case. It cannot be unhooked, it cannot be done like this. Only the external invasion, like it was shown in the scenario in the script of the movie, only external invasion in the matrix could have been producing the unhooking of the person or the battery. And why would they need him? Being someone special, the chosen one. Show me the chosen one around you. You won't see any chosen people. So there are no chosen. What is this chosen stuff? This is the same as in religion. The mission man, the Superman, the God, Son of God, whatever you call it, the religion indoctrinates this paradigm of someone, in some individual that can save everybody. And this is the point when I disagree with the Matrix, because the Matrix was made to mislead the people that researching stuff and ending up with this idea of singularity working here. We don't have the mission, Nobody has the mission. Nobody wants to know what is the mission, because when you wake up and your head is sticking out of your pod, of your matrix pod, you sooner or later figure out that you are risking your life here, and you will be dead in this information war, dead soon enough. Okay, and this is what not working here. Nobody's been killed for this, right? For waking up. Show me any person that been killed for this. Nobody. Okay, so this is not important. So the system lets us know this stuff. And how could this be working in the system of matrix of a total control system? So that kind of shows us that we're still not in the matrix, right? Maybe we're getting prepared to be some type of batteries in the future. by somebody that will, use us. But we are so expensive as a batteries. Just think about it. Not just an implementation of a battery from the human, but the whole, procedure. So many mess we produce, and we are supposed to be fed by something. We're supposed to have like all this nutrition to be working well. In other words, we are not immortal, right? As a controller. So controllers won't let us live like this so we can, be a total threat. He will erase the most of us and leave some type of small sheeple to let this control continue, right? In the first movie, where we're shown that all humans born inside the matrix lived the entire life under the programming of the system. Those that were born outside the matrix lived a different existence with complete free will in an alternate reality called Zion. So Zionism is also being advertised in this movie. Like Zionism is some cool stuff, right? So it's like, you know, letting Zionists advertise this Zionism as a Zion. So it's just stupid enough to say that, but Zion is an ancient word meaning some type of a city in ancient texts, right? An ancient land. And there are a bunch of secret societies that are tied to Zion right now. And the Matrix itself also advertises this definition. Zion was perceived as the reality that existed before the machines took over. Right? So many questions if what the entire creation we live in is also a created matrix of existence. So she actually asked this question, right? Before we had access to the technology that we have today, we would have had no way of knowing that it was a simulation or matrix construct, right? If the entirety of the creation is a simulation, including everything we consider natural, biological, and physical, how would we know the difference? Everything feels real and smells real and looks real. We bleed and feel pain and hunger and desire. We influence our surroundings. We experience consequences to our actions and even our interactions. Everything else happening in this matrix simulation affects us by one degree or another. We are born, we live our lives, and we die. We accept that we have a soul that is separate from our biological bodies. Many of us believe our spirit or soul energy continues to exist and even existed before we were born to this simulation. And this is a good point because this could possibly be happening right now, as I said before. Many of us believe in higher power. Most humans believe in a creator or God entity. Inside this creation, this higher power that we feel a connection to can help us. We call this heaven, our prayers answered. During prayer, we ask the Creator for help or advice or clarity. So, is prayer a two-way connection to the source of the code that created the simulation? We'll stop for a second and the wavelength of the prayer could produce some, as they say, frequency the same as the echo of the world, as they call it, echo of the earth, the frequency that earth produces. And this could possibly help the food become more healthy before you eat it, and the water become more lifeful of energy. And they even tell us that the water can be programmed and deprogrammed with this wavelength of the voice, singing or even playing classical music or hard rock can change the molecular cell connections via water exchange, and so on and so forth. So probably we have a two-way connection. And what I've heard before, maybe a month ago, uh, we seen uh, we've seen a video about so-called blagodat in Russian, which is like uh, good stuff from the God that comes from up there, and via the church devices was replicated to the devices inside the church, and they can give this blagodat to everybody in the church, and they can be charged with this blagodat. And uh, this is a good thing, and they can be charged, and they can even not eat and not sleep and not you know be healthy and stuff. And that's why they were going to church probably at that time, to receive all this Holy Spirit, whatever you call it right now. Ether energy is also very interesting, because this is also unpredictable wavelength of our spectrum of knowledge. We cannot predict what ether can affect, because we cannot prove it actually existing, except maybe a couple of scientists that are talking about it. But right now it's in the area of no return. If you go to the ether area, you'll be proclaimed as a crazy person, crazy scientist, and whatever you call it. And you will be turned away from all those grants and money. So don't research ether if you don't want to lose your money and become crazy and go to the madhouse, right? The creator cannot be inside the simulation, but can act upon it, perhaps using code to alter and manipulate the simulation. It would only make sense that angels, as some call them, are working within the simulation and can act upon it and manipulate it via the source code. So it's like some supporting programs, and maybe the spectre of different gods in ancient pantheons before the Christianity, so-called Christianity, was representing all those angels in a different, looks and different figures. Think about this. Thousands of witnesses saw Jesus make bread and fishes to feed the multitudes. They watched him heal people and raise the dead. They witnessed Moses part the Red Sea. So, how can these supernatural events be explained using the natural laws of man's science? I can easily explain this, Lori, but I know you believe in all these books that you read, but this could be also made up by somebody. So, uh, we see the same scenario in different movies, in different books, and same ideas passed through times, through centuries, and being described in different authors, in different ways, and being interpreted and commented by a bunch of people, and so and so on. And all we see is a movie about the Moses, which visualizes how Moses parted the sea, or Jesus made bread, right? But we don't know for sure was this occurring or not, or this is just an idea that's been passing through the times, through the different worlds, through the different cells, and been brought from different other religions that we haven't been obtaining here on the earth before that. And that's why probably we believed in different gods, in multiple gods pantheons before the Christianity, because what we knew is a bunch of different gods, which were like, one was for the wind, another was for the sea, and another was for the something like this. So it could be even the names of organization that with promoting those uh, this stuff to the people. For example, electricity was being promoted by Perun. Who knows? Gas was promoted by Neptune, or somebody else. Who knows? So this is a good thing to discuss, because all those points of view shows us this topic is very questionable, and Muslims would be arguing about their religion, Jewish people would be arguing about their interpretation of the same religion, which is Abrahamic religion, and the Christians would be talking and arguing about their interpretation, which was represented in Christian books. But I look at it as a union of one root, which was Abrahamic. So the only way this could happen is that just it was made up by those who were writing those books, and not just, and doesn't have any connection to the matrix idea. Okay, by having the ability via this help from outside, can the laws of nature be altered? This is considered supernatural or above and beyond nature, beyond the code of simulation. We can easily get rid of this if we if we take religion as something that was made up, right? Both satanic codes and Christian codes were made up to advertise the religion itself. So monotheistic Abrahamic root religion, right? Could it be? Yes, it could. My definition of natural versus the supernatural is everything inside the simulation is natural to the simulation. The supernatural is any manipulation coming from the source to alter the natural code. Inside the simulation, the code is equivalent to the rules of the simulation. The rules apply to everyone and including everything, all entities inside the simulation. So this is probably a statement. But what is supernatural? Have we seen something supernatural in our lives? I bet most of us have not. But doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? For example, if an angel is sent inside to affect something natural, depending on the extent of the manipulation, it would be referred to as supernatural. We've heard the term ghost in the machine. These code changers can be seen or rarely are. So probably this is exactly right, because nobody sees this stuff, and most of us doesn't happen to see anything like this. Okay, now I want to move on to what is a really. Artificial intelligence is the machine version of the human brain plus the connection to every bit of information available to it via the interwebs. Artificial intelligence is supposed to be the equivalent of superhuman intelligence and knowledge. The singularity is the connection of humans and artificial intelligence. So to take that one step further, singularity is the connection to the matrix, hopefully to some the source code or the creator. Is the source code the creator itself? No, it would be at minimum one level removed. Well, I couldn't understand what does this mean. But the source code could be creator itself. Why not? Why not? If we represent it as the script of the matrix, why not? But what we answer in the question, what was before, the egg or the chicken? This is really a good question. What was before, the creator or the code? Okay? In the Bible, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. As the Messiah, he was the Son of God and the human version of God. He said the only way to get to God was through him. God cannot interact directly with humans because they are not perfect or otherwise explained as fallen. If one believes this, then is it possible to work around Jesus and form your own connection to the source or the God? Is this the intent of the agenda to get to singularity, of which matrix or matrix? In the Matrix movie, Neo was called the One. So this is what I've been talking about before. This is the promotion of the religion that we know here on Earth. So it's tightly connected and the same idea, exactly same idea. His mission was to understand the Matrix to the degree that he was able to be one with it and therefore manipulate it, master it. The agents were designed as the malware to block his way. But once he reached singularity with the Matrix, he was above and beyond being blocked. He was considered equal to the machines that created the Matrix, or otherwise considered one with the hive mind. To those inside the Matrix, he would be considered supernatural by having the ability to manipulate the code. All this thinking leads me to the question whether it was a hidden agenda to purposely put this movie out there to the public. Obviously, one agenda would be to make millions of dollars for the producers of the movie. That was easily accomplished, as it was an epic production. The plot and the action were similar to so many other stories, myths, and legends that came before with the same ideas for antagonist and protagonist and an epic battle pitting good against evil, and then came the resolution. But what if there are those who already know all this exists in some other form? Theoretical astrophysicists have been saying for years that the universe at its most atomic level is a binary code. It's all just a sequence of zeros and ones like computer code. Elon Musk and Ray Kurzweil, among others, have been saying for years that AE is approaching singularity and very well may not be a good idea. Innovators have been striving for it since computer technology came out on the scene. Man was trying to be God with efforts of cloning and genetically modifying organisms for decades. The carrot that been dangling is the promise of immortality. But what we heard about immortality right now is that people using other people as the source of some nutrition to, you know, stay immortal or live longer than the rest. Considering the universal law of free will, so what was the universe that put out this act? I don't know. Is there a universal law? Think about it. Can we state it like this? I don't think so. But anyways, everything within the construct or creation, as we know, is designed to allow everyone to make decisions and have experiences, be they right or wrong, based on the universal law of free will. Why would an entity create a universe where she, he, it made all these decisions for all the players? You wouldn't, because it would be boring to challenge yourself or even worship yourself without giving your creation the choice to love you or not. So, if some humans have figured out how the construct works according to the universal law of free will, would they be breaking the rules if they manipulate everyone without everything having their own free will to choose whether they are manipulated or not? The submatrix inside the matrix that was originally created could easily be described or defined as government and bureaucratic layers upon layers to control and manipulate humanity. Many people who consider themselves awakened see this submatrix inside the matrix, and there is a growing rebellion against these controls. There are many reasons why these awakened ones have figured out bits of it. Some of the reasons, and because the submatrix controllers have made many mistakes and been sloppy and reactionary. Another reason is, in order to play by the law of free will, They have to show us in one form or another what they are doing and how they are doing it. I can't argue with this, but still, let's take for example the flat earth revolution. First of all, there have always been those who perceived the earth as flat. It was not just eons ago that goat herders in archaic times had such small thinking that they could be not imagine a spinning globe. The thinking has always been around through every decade, but 3-4 years ago this idea that the earth is flat suddenly grew in an exponential way all across the earth. It appears to me that the time that someone pushed a big button, suddenly everyone was introduced to a new flat earth idea. I've seen a video today by Eric Dubai when he starts with probably the same exact words. That not long ago the earth is flat, it suddenly grew in an exponential way in Google Trends and stuff like this. So it's not only Lori's thinking, right? If you're not a flat earther and you are not aware with this idea, I recommend you take a look at it, because it's really interesting and more interesting than you think. This is the reason why many people thought it was a psychological operation. Suddenly, everywhere you looked was the flat earth video suggested to you on YouTube. Suddenly, everyone was talking about it and doing experiments and making Facebook groups, videos, websites, and blogs. Suddenly, there were gurus who seemed to understand it completely and became breaking news to point out how the world works. It was as if the Matrix wanted everyone to consider it. Suddenly, there were maps and legends and myths and historical data bubbling to the surface, and before you knew it, there were arguments and fights and different opinions from within the arena of the flat earth community. Curious people looking into this phenomenon of what was called the flat earth movement quickly sided up one consortium or another, or one guru or another. Even more curiously, they grew up in anti-flat earth movement with the debunkers and saints and mainstream media vehemently laughing at those expense of those who, at the very least, were globe skeptics. So, as I said before, probably the idea of this matrix came through this, and she is describing her experience. Another example is Mandela effect people. This also quickly came out of nowhere and became an almost cult-like phenomenon. It happened out about the same time and in about the same method of exposure. Those who latched on the Mandela effect immediately began gathering evidence of there appeared to be an alternate universe, alternate timeline, or parallel universe, because what they were remembered and what they found in the current belief system and on the internet did not match with their memory. So was the Mandela effect also another psychological operation, or was it the exposing of what was called a glitch in the Matrix movies? Lori, I would also add a bunch of other things that were exposed. I think this is just the right time, because the internet grew right about that time when the YouTube was, affecting people, and Facebooks and all this stuff. All this grew about the same time. This is probably why. I could recite episode after episode of this kind of phenomenon. I'm sure you could too. The question is, where do these phenomena originate? Are they truly grassroots awakenings, or are they being manipulated and introduced by those who control the submatrix inside the construct? Many people inside the truth movement awareness awakening, or whatever you choose to call it, but they don't understand that all these movements are also being manipulated from inside of those putting out information, disinformation, and misinformation by using trolls and shields and counterintelligence agents. This could be correlating with this, you know, propaganda system or sub-controllers that been mentioned before in previous uh, chapters. That obviously makes it more difficult to shift, I guess, through the mountain, through this mountain of info to get to the real truth of the matter. No wonder everyone is arguing and calling each other shields. Unless you take an immense amount of time to validate where the information is coming from and driving down the twisty road to confirm not only the validity of the information but the informants themselves. Very good point, because what we see in Russian YouTube right now is people trying to debunk each other and hype on that. And probably this is what she was experiencing in her YouTube experience. Most people don't have time for that, so they take one or two paths. They either rely on some charismatic guru who they trust has done the research and investigation. They naturally resort to confirmation bias, or their complacency takes over and they just don't care enough to do any of this work themselves. They rest happily, go back in the matrix and forget ever of what they ever heard it. The truth movement considers those people sheeple. At least 75 to 80% of humans more than likely fall into this category because the matrix requires most, if not all, their energy and attention just to get by an average day in the matrix. So we're kind of closing our points to one point. The matrix is an info war area, right? So the definition of this mind control is, why is mind control produced? To win some informational war, or maybe creating a revolution and changing the sub-controllers, right? So this is a very good point, I think. And I also agree with this, because it could be reproduced if we compare this to the matrix, right? It shouldn't be any surprise that simulation theory came out on the scene. Shortly after these other theories like Flat Earth and Mandela effect were introduced into the human consciousness, boom, here comes simulation theory. Well, actually not. Well, I've heard about simulation theory way before I've heard about anything, because I watched Matrix in the 90s, right? When it was produced. I don't quite remember, maybe 90s or early millenniums. So it was way before I've heard about Flat Earth, because I've heard about Flat Earth like in 2005 or maybe '07, something like this, right? And I've heard about it in school when we were taught that this was a bullshit theory, right? The only globe was correct. So, here comes simulation theory. Why? Might it be the Hegelian dialectic at work? Problems, reaction, solution. When all these researchers started being globe skeptics, and then many rejected the obviously introduced flat earth map and model because it also doesn't work. It was a natural next step to think, well, if it isn't a spinning globe and it isn't pizza pan snow globe covered disc, then what else could it be? Well, I've showed before what else could it be, but nobody listens, right? This is my model, works perfectly in the globe navigation system, right? But nobody wants it to be, so let it be matrix for now, right? There are already multiple theories as to what simulation theory is, it is like running the gauntlet to maneuver through all the ideas being put out there. There's an atheist version and a Christian version and even a scientism version. Many found that scientism as science dogma made into religion. The question is where you believe in creator God or not. Something created a simulation if that is what this is. Something created the simulation if that is what it is. But it's not simulation, right? If it's not the simulation, then we have to understand that somebody is not required. This God, a creator. If it's not a simulation, that it couldn't have a programmer who programmed it, right? It could be just made by somebody else. Or it was existing before that somebody else came. Just think about it. It's like, who was before, the egg or the chicken? So no answer to this question, right? Was that the Big Bang that no one was there to hear or witness? There are those who believe in the Big Bang theory and evolution, and those who believe in the earth and the universe were created by God or gods. If it were created by many gods, who created them? Okay, good questions, and I can answer with only this. What was the first, an egg or a chicken? Right? There's no answer to this question, and nobody knows who was before and who was creating what. So they are called the matrix manipulators. And we probably continue with this next time. It was about 52 minutes to discuss half of the article, and I'll probably leave it to the another evening so we can finish it up in a couple of more comment videos like this. So let me know if you like it. Comment what you think on what was what you heard today. Probably read this article also, and I'll leave you a link under it, and tell me what you think. But I'm gonna be reviewing it as all of you will be reading the article, and please comment also under the video and under the article on the flatEarthConspiracy.com. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and see you later. Bye.